with the hype for the Punisher One Last Kill special finally reaching a fever pitch on Disney Plus and Jon Bernthal once again proving that he owns every square inch of Frank Castle's tortured soul in this new special presentation format, it feels like the absolute perfect moment to look back at the one time a video game actually managed to bottle that lightning and serve it up in a rain-slicked, blood-soaked package that still puts most modern superhero titles to shame. I'm talking about the 2005 Punisher game for the PS2, a title developed by Volition that emerged during that Wild West era of the mid-2000s, where licensed games were starting to realize they didn't have to be mediocre cash-ins and could instead be genuine love letters to the source material. And what makes this specific digital iteration of Frank so fascinating is that it exists in this perfect crossroads of Punisher history where it features the cold, calculated voice of Thomas Jane, who was still fresh off the 2004 movie.
There's nothing to help you when the darkness falls. You're laid open so the world can rummage in your guts. Just because the mayor chased away the monsters, chased them to Brooklyn and the Bronx, don't think this place has changed. Not in its heart, not where it lives. Do not fall in New York City. No one's gonna catch you.
But is written by the legendary Garth Ennis, meaning it has all the grit and pitch-black humor of the Welcome Back Frank comics while ditching the slightly campier elements of the film for something far more sinister. The game mechanics are honestly revolutionary for the time because while it presents as a third-person shooter, it's actually a sophisticated engine for systemic intimidation, built around the core idea that Frank Castle doesn't just want to kill criminals, but wants them to be absolutely terrified before they go, leading us to the legendary interrogation system, which remains the game's crowning achievement, where you aren't just looking for key cards, but dragging thugs over to a conveniently placed power drill, a vat of acid, or even a literal shark tank to persuade them to talk. There's this visceral white-knuckle tension in balancing the pressure of your thumbstick to keep their fear meter in the yellow zone without accidentally killing them too early, and seeing those special interrogations play out with Jane's gravelly delivery is a dark, cinematic treat that captures the character's ruthlessness better than almost any live-action adaptation prior to the Netflix era. It doesn't stop there because the game also introduces the slaughter mode, a mechanic that triggers a flickering, black and white fever dream where Frank pulls out a pair of combat knives and becomes a supernatural whirlwind of precision and rage, which feels like a direct spiritual ancestor to the high-octane intensity Bernthal brings to his fight scenes, especially as we see him evolve in the One Last Kill special. The level design is where the game truly shows its teeth, taking you from the claustrophobic, filth-ridden halls of a crack house to the high-tech corridors of Stark Towers, complete with a surprising Nick Fury cameo and a pre-MCU Iron Man helping you clear out a mercenary army. Which creates this incredible sense of scale, where Frank feels like the boogeyman that even the Avengers are a little uncomfortable around. You've got iconic missions like the Nucci Estate or the Zoo level, where you can literally feed Yakuza bosses to piranhas or trap them in enclosures with rhinos, showcasing a level of environmental reactivity that was way ahead of its time and made the world feel like one giant, lethal playground. The game also uses a brilliant point-based medal system that rewards you for being a true Punisher, forcing you to maintain a multiplier by killing efficiently and performing stylish quick kills without taking damage, which then allows you to buy permanent upgrades for your body armor, weapon accuracy, and grenade capacity, turning the late-game Frank into an unstoppable force of nature. It's also worth mentioning the subtle musical shifts where the score morphs to reflect the ethnic background of the gangs you're fighting, moving from industrial beats for the Russian mob to traditional strings for the Yakuza, which adds a layer of polish you just don't see in modern licensed fluff. Comparing this to the different eras of the character, it bridges the gap between the silent lethality of the Thomas Jane era and the raw, animalistic trauma of the Bernthal era perfectly. And as we prepare for Frank's big screen return in Spider-Man Brand New Day later this summer, revisiting this PS2 classic is a reminder of just how deep the character's roots go and how, even 20 years ago, we had a definitive, interactive version of the character that refused to pull its punches. It is an absolute gem because it understands that playing as the Punisher should feel heavy and consequential, where every human shield you grab and every environmental kill you execute feels like a necessary step in a one-man war that has no end in sight, making it an essential piece of history for anyone who wants to see the character handled with the grim respect and stylistic flair he deserves. So, as the credits roll on this blood-soaked retrospective, and we all collectively prepare our living rooms for the arrival of the One Last Kill special, it's hard not to feel a bit of bittersweet nostalgia for a time when a licensed game could be this uncompromisingly brutal and mechanically inventive. Volition's take on the Punisher wasn't just a tie-in to a movie, it was a definitive statement on what makes Frank Castle such an enduring, terrifying figure in the Marvel pantheon, proving that you don't need a sprawling open world or 100 side quests to capture the essence of a character when you have a pitch-perfect interrogation system and an atmosphere thick enough to choke on. Whether you're a die-hard fan of the Garth Ennis run that inspired this game, a newcomer who discovered Frank through the visceral intensity of John Bernthal's Netflix era, or someone just waiting to see how the new Disney special reshapes the character's legacy once again, this PS2 classic remains the gold standard for interactive vigilante justice. It's a game that respects your intelligence, challenges your morals, and satisfies that dark, arcade itch for high-stakes carnage in a way that very few titles have managed to replicate in the 20 years since its release. I hope this look back has inspired you to dust off your old console or find a way to experience this masterpiece for yourself, because even as the live-action versions of Frank continue to evolve and adapt for new audiences, the raw, unfiltered energy of this 2005 gem still hits like a sledgehammer to the ribs. Thank you so much for riding along with me through the darkest alleys of New York City today. And if you want to keep the conversation going about our favorite skull-wearing anti-hero, or suggest another classic title that deserves a second look, be sure to drop a comment below and help the channel grow so we can keep diving into these forgotten legends. Make sure to keep your eyes peeled for more Punisher content as we lead up to the big movie reveal later this summer. But until then, keep your head down, your powder dry, and remember that in Frank's world, the war never truly ends.